Welcome to Show Me Sports Legacies. I'm your host, Jeff Crowley, and I've got Chris Hockenfels across the table from me. Welcome, Chris.
Welcome back. It's great to be back on the podcast. Looking forward to another great episode. And we get to be cool inside instead of hot outside. And with everything that's going on in the sports world, it's great to be back in the studio.
It is good to be back in the studio, but this is the time of year that a lot of people put in a lot of work, so they're ready to play the fall sports, go to camps, and do all that kind of stuff. And tonight, we're talking about a couple folks that went a long way with that and played walk-on Division I college football at the very highest level, and that didn't come easy.
Yeah, they often say that players are built in the off-season, and that's hard work. And if you just are around high schools in general, in the summer, you see all of the camps and weight training and off-season conditioning going on and all of those skills being developed. And it takes a lot of work to be good at a sport. And it takes a lot of work to take those skills and transition from high school to college. And our guest tonight not only did that, but did that in the walk-on fashion, which is special in and of itself. So looking forward to hearing those stories.
We are happy to have tonight with us Matt Stewart, who is a Kansas City Fox 4 news reporter. That's how most people know him now, but was a walk-on player under Gary Barnett, who helped turn around the Northwestern football program. A kid from Omaha. We got another kid from Nebraska with us tonight, from Albion, Nebraska, and a Trenton resident for a long time, Darren Schmadeke, and we're happy to have him with us tonight. And when we bring them into the studio here in just a moment, we hope that we hear some great stories about some great coaches, players, and their part in helping build those programs.
Yeah, it's lining up to be a great episode filled with all of those things that it takes to be successful, not only in sports, but in life. Hard work, determination, dedication, a lot of will, a lot of want to, and these two guys are just shining examples of that.
Okay, so we're going to keep the small talk down, and we'll just move on to that part of the program.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
We're joined now by Matt Stewart, a longtime morning reporter for Kansas City Fox 4 News. He is a familiar face to thousands over the years. His journey had a football beginning as a high school player, championship team from Omaha's Millard South, then decided to walk on at Northwestern University, attracted by the combination of a renowned journalism school and the opportunity to play football in the Big Ten. At that time, the Northwestern Wildcats were, unfortunately, one of the worst programs in Division I with a long period of no bowl games, much less competing for championships. But that changed quickly. Now, his journey, as he wrote in his book, The Walk-On, got it right here, finished reading it today.
Love it.
In this book, he talks about loneliness, the toughness, the being away from home, all the sacrifices, and the long journey to compete for playtime on the Northwestern Wildcats team. By persevering, he became part of an amazing turnaround, orchestrated by Coach Gary Barnett, his staff and players, that resulted in a Big Ten championship and a Rose Bowl appearance. Nice. So this is our first Rose Bowl participant on our podcast. This is new. Chris.
Hey, I'm just looking at all the accolades, thinking about how we're going to ask him for something to go in the studio next to our sports Emmy, because if we can get one of our guests to provide his national championship ring, and then we can get Matt to provide maybe that Big Ten championship ring, we can just put him right here in the studio, and for people to see when they come from on the podcast.
I don't think I trust you guys with my Big Ten ring, so sorry.
Okay, all right.
I understand that. Now, after playing at Northwestern, Matt's achievements include 4 books at least that I know of, and he has been a longtime news reporter on the morning program for Fox 4 in Kansas City, and is really in social media right now and very present with a family story and issues that he's dealing with, and he's just got a lot of people in his corner. We're also joined in the studio tonight by Trenton resident Darren Schmadeke, and Darren had his own college football experience as a walk-on with Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Go Huskers.
In the early 1990s as part of a national championship winning teams, couple. Darren now resides in Trenton, and I appreciate Darren. He was a parent of a student on my first team in the COVID year when I coached junior high basketball. And he was one of the good parents that showed up every day and supported his kid and didn't holler at the new coach too much.
Oh, but the stories he told me about you behind the scenes.
Well, that's true. That's true. I've survived 6 years now doing that. So it's a good thing. We're going to start out, Matt, with this book. You had to tell us about your experiences as a young man, kind of lonely, kind of trying to figure out your path, striving to be recognized, rewarded as a walk-on. Give us a sense of what took you to Chicago and your very first experiences as a walk-on at Northwestern.
Sure. Yeah. It's one of those things where, I just played high school football. Honestly, my freshman year, I was on the B team. Wasn't very good at all, but I just loved the sport. I just loved hitting people. So I wanted to get better at it, hit the weight room, start running. Sophomore year, I ended up starting on offense, defense, just for the sophomore team. Junior year, same thing on the JV team. Then senior year, it's like, hey, I'm finally varsity. Yay, I get to start at safety. But I wasn't even the best player on my team. No school recruited me. So I was done. I was like, well, but the last game of my senior year, I intercepted the ball and ran it back for a touchdown, and we won 7-0. And so I remember thinking, man, I have just scratched the surface of my potential. I wish I could play in college, but I'm just not good enough. I'm done. So I hung up the cleats. I was done. I was looking for a good journalism school to go to. Northwestern was the best in the nation. When I was accepted that spring of my senior year, my dad was like, Matt, Northwestern is the worst team in the Big Ten. Maybe you could play for them. And I'm like, well,
yeah.
Great. I did want to play college football. D1, I don't know, but they're that bad. I mean, they have the longest losing streak in Division I football. And yeah, Gary Burnett, he had just been there for 1 year. He promised to take the purple to Pasadena, to the Rose Bowl. And so I was like, well, I don't know any of the players. I don't know any of the coaches. My high school coach called up there and said, hey, I'll send you tape of this guy. And they're like, nope, we don't need tape. He can walk on because no one wants to walk on at Northwestern. It's not like Nebraska where you have to try out to walk on. I was one of 3 freshman walk-ons, and I was the only one to last all 4 years. The other 2 ended up quitting the team. So it was a situation where I just took a chance on myself because I knew I could always quit. So I was just like, you know what? If this isn't for me, I will just quit. And I will tell you, I was in way over my head. It was fish out of water. Had never been to Chicago, never been to Northwestern. As I said, no one knew me. I didn't know anybody. And my parents dropped me off, and school didn't start for a month and a half. We had 6 weeks straight of football practice and no classes. And my parents dropped me off and said, we'll see you at Thanksgiving. And they drove back to Omaha, and I was left alone. And I was 5th string free safety. I was barely getting time on the practice squad. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I was so sad. I called home. I was crying. I was like, Mom, Dad, pick me up. My dad's like, okay, 2 things, Matt. First of all, I'm not picking you up. Second of all, you can't control what the coaches do. You can't control their decision making. All you control is your attitude and your effort. If you go out there every day with a positive attitude and treat every practice like a Friday night football game in high school and just go 100% every time, the coaches will notice you, I promise you. And that's what I started to do, and it changed everything. The coaches started noticing me. I started feeling better about things. But at the end of the season, I was still like, look, I'm 5th string free safety. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. But fortunately, my dad was like, Matt, waited out through spring ball. We had 15 spring practices. It was 15 chances to prove myself. The 2nd string free safety graduated. The 3rd string free safety ended up quitting the team. The 4th string free safety was academically ineligible. So it was the starter and me. And that was it. For 15 practices, I was able to play half the reps. And it was one of those things where I was done. I was quitting. So I played loose. I was making tackles. I was making interceptions. And at the end of spring practice, my defensive coach comes up and he goes, Matt, you keep playing like that, you're going to play for us on Saturdays. And I'm like, wait a minute. What? The walk-on from Nebraska, who was 5th string free safety, is now getting a chance to play on Saturdays. And true to the word, sophomore year, I was 2nd string free safety, played a little bit, was on the punt return team, ended up getting a full ride scholarship. And yeah, junior year, we turned it around and won 10 games and went to the Rose Bowl. The year that Nebraska was ranked number 2, we were ranked number 3.
Hey.
At the time, of course, Nebraska beat Florida and was ranked 1st, and we lost and was ranked 7th. But at one point, growing up in Nebraska, being a Cornhusker fan, I couldn't play for Nebraska. I mean, I was just like, I'm not good enough for Nebraska, but I thought maybe I'd be good enough for Northwestern. And I was just very fortunate. I took a chance on myself. It was hard. And as a walk-on, you have to work twice as hard as everyone else just to get recognition, just to get playing time. And it paid off for me. I ended up being a part of one of the greatest college football turnarounds in history. The worst team in the nation, Northwestern, beats Notre Dame, goes to the Rose Bowl. Everyone's like, what's going on here? It ended up being the Cinderella story of 1995.
It's great. And I remember that. I mean, I've followed that, and it wasn't shocking, but it was just like every week it just kept building. And, when those Cinderella stories start rolling, you prove it against the Michigans of the world.
Yep. Penn State, all of them. Yeah.
Now, Darren, I got to ask you, I mean, what differed about how you arrived at Nebraska and what you encountered that first week when the freshmen only were on the campus?
Yeah, very similar. I can relate to a lot of it. I have a twin brother who walked on too, so we both got asked to walk on by Turner Gill, actually, who called us February of our senior year to walk on, so that was a great moment I'll never forget. But anyway, we did report early, I think the first week of August, and we were there 2 or 3 weeks before the other guys came in, and it was 3-a-days. We had 3-a-days. I'll tell you what, I thought I was in shape, and I wasn't in shape. I can tell you that. So overall, it was a grind, without a doubt. The first 2 years for me, of course, I redshirted my freshman year. That was a big deal back then, the redshirting. I was on the scout team, basically, for 2 solid years. Once my sophomore year hit and I was second year on the scout team, it was kind of wearing on me, thinking, do I really want to stick this out or whatever? And one thing I kept going is I can't live with myself if I quit and walk away from this thing. This is such a huge opportunity. Most kids from Nebraska grow up going. Our families had season tickets at Nebraska for 50 years, and I started going when we were 6. So my grandparents would go, my parents would go. We wouldn't miss a game. So it was a dream of ours to walk on, my brother and I, and we went to football camp all 4 years, freshman through senior year at Nebraska, to get noticed by the coaches. And then we were a 3-sport athlete in high school as well, with track and football and wrestling and basketball. But overall, I started out as a receiver, a wingback. Coach Ron Brown was my coach. I did not have very good hands catching the ball. One thing, when we would have to do one-on-ones, I remember it was Brooke Behringer or Tommy Frazier throwing to us, and we'd line up, and I'd run a 10-yard out, and I'd have Tom Osborne and watching me. The pressure of that was pretty big. And I dropped the ball. It was right in my hands. And Coach Brown one time walked up to me after my sophomore year and says, Darren, he goes, you got hands like feet. He goes, I think we need to move you to the defensive side. And I go, Coach, I'll gladly accept that. I'll be happy to become a cornerback. So from there on, I did transition to the defensive side, and it worked out much better, I would say, for me on that too. So we were really good. I was part of the last 5 of the Big 8 championships. So from 91 to 95, we won every Big 8 championship. And then 96, they went to the Big 12. That was really nice. But, we beat everybody by 20 or 30 points, when we got onto the field. And it was one of those things where I got to play a lot more than I ever thought, so I did special teams, kickoff, stuff like that too. Was just very grateful for the opportunity and made a lot of great friends that played in the NFL, played against a lot of people like Ray Lewis, The Rock, when they played against Miami. Of course, back then I didn't know who they were, but anyway, it's kind of fun to look back at that. J.J. Stokes from UCLA. I remember tackling him one time. So I've got fond memories like that really stick in my mind that really, I don't know, it's pretty exciting to talk about.
Well, and I'm sure, Darren, you could probably relate. The game in college is so much faster than you expect. You're in practice is one thing, right? And you're going full speed and you think, okay, I'm ready for the game. My first game was sophomore year, Notre Dame at Soldier Field. And I get out there for punt return and I hit my guy, and my guy's like 10 yards ahead of me the whole way down the field. And I'm going as fast as I can. I'm like, wow, I can't believe how much faster the game is than practice.
Yes.
Like it really was really, really fast. And you had to adjust to that or else you were going to get burned sitting on the sideline.
Correct. It's all about angles too. One thing talking about that, I remember chasing down
inches and angles.
Yeah, is Rydell Anthony in the national championship, the Fiesta Bowl. He did a kickoff. We just scored, and he ran it back, and I was the far left safety. I came from clear across the field. I thought I had a chance of getting at him, but I dove at the 10-yard line and got his shoestring. And then, of course, they zoom in on me, and I'm pulling turf out of my helmet. So, no, they need to put the camera on Rydell, not me, pulling the turf out. But anyway, it was a great experience to be there. But yeah, the speed and the angles, the competition was amazing. One other thing I'll tell you, too, which is kind of interesting, is I went to about every Big 12 school except for Oklahoma State. This is kind of a funny story. They always announced who was on the travel squad. This is my sophomore year, I think. And I basically got loaded up, got my bags, got onto the plane at the Lincoln Airport, was sitting into my seat And then they walked through and they said, Darren, you're not traveling today. I go, what? So I had to do the walk of shame, grab my bag in front of everybody, walk down the back of the plane and get off the plane. And I'm just like, I was crushed after that.
So tell me, there's like a Rudy moment where they actually post these lists?
Yes.
Where you'd have to walk up to it, like in the movie Rudy, and find your name and be like, I'm going or I'm not going.
Yeah, it's
today.
either the top 2 or 3, you know, depending on the week of injuries and that sort of thing. And I was on there, and then they changed it after I looked at it. Anyway, it is what it is.
That's a good moment, a good story. Good story.
Yeah, kind of fun.
Matt, I think you were kind of soaking this all in. And one of the things that I was impressed by with your book, because I think it would be hard to put yourself back in the frame of mind of a 19-year-old and what you were feeling, how crushing these things were, and really kind of unvarnished, like the naivete of a 19-year-old and all that stuff kind of comes through.
I mean, being a journalist, obviously, I'm always in pursuit of the truth, and I want there to be authenticity behind all my reports. And so when it came to writing this book, I knew that the only way for it to be effective and for people to really understand what it's like to be a walk-on was I had to relive those emotions, and it was hard. I mean, there's so many ups and downs, as Darren's saying. I mean, there's days where maybe in a game, you have a great block and you help spring a touchdown and you're like on cloud 9. And then the next week, you miss a tackle and they score a touchdown and you feel like you're never going to play again, especially as a walk-on. You just feel like you're one bad play away from getting cut from the team and never being able to play again. And I went through that. You have your good practices and bad practices, but the scholarship players, if they have a bad practice, the coach is like, okay, well, we know you're great, so whatever. But the walk-on, you have a bad practice and you feel like, oh my gosh, the coaches are never going to trust me again. They're not going to play me on Saturday. All you want as a walk-on is a chance to play. I can imagine being at Nebraska, you're winning 80-3. You're playing a lot. But at Northwestern, now granted we were losing, but Gary Barnett made us competitive. So there weren't a ton of blowout losses, especially my sophomore year. We won 3 games my sophomore year, but we lost 5 games by 1 score. I was second string free safety, but the guy in front of me, he was an Iron Man. He was never getting hurt. So it's not like I was going in there and playing a ton. I got in there a little bit and made a few tackles, and it was nice. But as a walk-on, you just want to play as much as you can. And if you're second string, especially if it's a competitive game, you're probably not getting in there. So you support the team in other ways. You make the most of that experience. And so at the end of it, it's easier to look back and say, you know what? I played in the Rose Bowl. I played in the Citrus Bowl. I have 2 Big Ten championship rings. I intercepted a ball. I did some really good things. And you kind of forget, right? The hardship and the tears and the heartache. Right. But writing that book was tough because I had to go back to those moments where, I was crying, where I wanted to quit, where I just felt disrespected by the coaches. And it was hard, but it was good because I want people when they read that book to see this is real life. This is what it's like as a walk-on. It's not all, hey, you're just going to get on there and you're automatically going to play and be a star. I mean, you got to work every single play just to get a minute of playing time.
And I think it's important. We want kids to hear about these stories and understand the amount of work and skill development that goes into it and the failure.
Yeah.
The failure rate in sports in general, even for the best of players in baseball and football and basketball, you just don't make all the shots. You don't hit all the home runs. You don't make all the tackles. And kids don't often understand that there's going to be low points, and their mental health and their strength of mental health is going to be a key factor to keep practicing, to stay fit and be ready when the moment comes.
And especially in 2026 with the era of instant gratification, like there is no more patience. There is no more, I can make this work out, over a period of time. It's, I got to have it now. And if it doesn't work out now, I'm going to move on to something else. And I think that's been a big change, in the last 20 or 30 years. This is maybe a slow burn and I can make it happen over a period of time. And now it's just like bang, 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 bang. I got to make it happen now. It's like an Instagram reel. I'm just going to move on to the next one if this one doesn't work out. And that may be 30 seconds from now. So a different era, and an era I'm quite fond of actually with going back to it, when you guys played in the 90s.
So I'm interested in some coaching stories because you go into this in your book and you tell some great Gary Barnett stories. You tell about an old coach brought in at the beginning of the season and how that guy kind of set the tone or he kind of used him as a way to impact the team and kind of set up the season. Give us a glimpse into that when the themes were set for the year.
So Gary Barnett, he knew that if he wanted to turn around our mindset from losing to winning, he knew he had to go all out and do some unconventional things. So the first thing he did was he moved our summer training from campus to the University of Wisconsin Parkside in Kenosha, Wisconsin. It's a Division II school. They don't even have a football team. They only have a soccer team. So we had to bring up the goalposts. We brought up our weight room, and it was nothing but football for 10 straight days. 2-a-days. One year we did have 3-a-days, which was tough. And brought in this, he was like an 85-year-old motivational speaker. His name was Steve Musso. And yeah, he was a former coach. And Gary Barnett had met him along the way and had inspired his kids. And he had all these great stories. And so every year there was a different theme. So the first year, for instance, the theme was trust. And so he would get up there every night at training camp and he would have different stories about trust. And then the second year, it was all about, well, I'm trying to think of the second year. I think it was like teamwork.
Priming the pump? Was that
Priming the pump was my junior year. Okay. And that was huge. And that was a great story. So the story Steve Musso said, which I'll share with you now, is he said that he and a couple guys and this young guy, they all went out hiking in the woods and they got lost. And it was really hot and they were really thirsty. And they came across a pump in the ground and they tried to pump it, but there was no water coming out. It hadn't been primed, meaning it, you needed to pump it to the point where the water started coming out easily. But the water was way down deep in the ground. So the young guy started pumping it as hard as he could to prime the pump and get the water going. He was doing it for about 5 minutes and he's exhausted and he's sweating and he stops. And the guys are like, no, keep going. He's like, why? He's like, 'cause if you stop now, the water's going to go all the way back down to the bottom. See, you've already started the water getting there, but once the water starts flowing, you barely touch the pump and the water will just come out. And so what the message was is that we were working so hard in practice that we couldn't have a day off. We had to attack each practice with 100% effort, because if we started slacking off, all of our effort would be for naught. We'd go back to our losing ways. But once we started winning, it would be easier to win the next game. We just needed to learn how to win. So we needed to prime the pump. So he actually put a pump. Gary Barnett put a pump at the top of the hill. And after practice and before, we had to touch the pump on the way down, on the way back. So he had these great stories. I'm going to share one more story with you because this is my favorite story. So junior year, we go into South Bend. This is the first game of the year. We play Notre Dame. We are 28-point underdogs. Notre Dame is top 10 ranked. They're supposed to kill us. We beat them 17-15. Chicago sometimes calls it the upset of the century. I mean, people are out of their minds. What is going on? Northwestern beat Notre Dame. We have media at our. We've never seen the media. The media comes for like media night, and then we don't see them the rest of the season. And they want to interview everyone. Everyone's really excited. We just beat Notre Dame. We are the darlings of America. Our next game's against Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio is terrible. They're starting their second-string quarterback. They come in. We're up 28-0 in the third quarter. This game is over. Or so we thought. Miami of Ohio comes back and beats us 29-28. And we were in shock. We're like, wait a minute, what team are we? Are we going back to our losing ways? I mean, we beat Notre Dame, then we lose to Miami of Ohio. It just didn't make sense. So Gary Barnett gets up on the stage in front of the whole team. He's got a coconut, and the top is cut off, and he's got a banana in his hand. He says, gentlemen, in Africa, there's a tribe, and the way they catch monkeys is they chain the coconut to the tree. They have the opening. They put the banana at the bottom. The monkey reaches its hand into the coconut to grab the banana, makes a fist. Now it can't get the fist out of the coconut. All it has to do is let go of the banana, go on its way, no big deal. But these monkeys are so stubborn that a few days later, the tribe comes back and there's a bunch of dead monkeys all around the tree with their hand in a fist in these coconuts. They starve to death because they refuse to let go. He said, if we do not let go of that loss, our season's over. He goes, we've got to let it go and move on and not worry about it. And we did. And we ended up winning our next 9 games and won the Big Ten and went to the Rose Bowl. And that story, to me, personifies Gary Barnett and how he got us to believe in ourselves and turned us from losers to winners.
I love it. I love the way football coaches just go for the drama, and you guys are just eating it up in the room. Yes. You can imagine. I can just imagine that everybody's going, wow, Nowadays, people would be Googling monkeys in Africa and seeing if that really happens or something.
Right.
But back then, you were buying it all.
We ate it up.
He was a performer. You got any stories like that? Or
Wait, I got to guess that Tom Osborne never approached his team with a coconut and a banana. Am I right?
You are correct.
Okay, all right. So I just want to clear that up. That's my guess, but I'd love to hear a Tom Osborne or two, because I always, as a fan, knew Tom Osborne as the gentle giant, right? That he could motivate and capture his players and his audience just by being Tom Osborne and the way he was. So let her rip, Darren. What do we got about Tom?
Well, we called him Dr. Tom, and overall, one thing with him is he took the time to learn the freshman roster, sophomore, so he knew everybody's name by first name, and he can even tell my brother and my twin brother apart, in which he was the only coach that could do it. Even my position coach couldn't tell us apart. So our nickname was Schmad back in the day, so they couldn't go wrong with,
Right. Hey, Schmad, get over here.
Exactly. So that was how we got nicknamed that, But one thing with Tom, he was very calm, cool, collected. I never heard him say a swear word or cuss word, ever, even during a heated game, and one of the things I'd have to hold back a little bit because he was standing right here and I'm by the sideline, so I didn't want him hearing me, because of a bad player I'm watching on the team. But overall, the leadership, the preparation, the belief, that we had. And I know when we played Florida State in the 1993 Bobby Bowden National Championship game, and we lost 18-16, Byron Bennett kicked it wide right, and we were winning the game with 1:16 left. So that next offseason, during the spring and summer, we put 1:16 on the scoreboard every practice. And it was a reminder of how close we were to winning our national championship. So that this is in preparation for the 94 season, and it did work. We ended up being 13-0 our 94 season, and then 12-0 the 95 season. But it was one of those things, we as a team had such a belief when we walked on the field, we knew we were going to win. And even including me, all the walk-ons, we all had the same belief. We had the confidence, and that we did the preparation work, and the coaches got us there. One thing too, I remember George Darlington was my coach, for defensive backs, so he was a great coach. We had to take tests before every game. And if you didn't get a 90%, you weren't playing on Saturday. So I was stressing about making sure I got a 90%.
Like a pencil and paper?
Pencil and paper test.
Nice.
On coverages, and it was pretty detailed. So I'll never forget that too. So that was kind of stressful. I don't know, a lot of coaching stories. I know Kevin Steele was a linebacker coach there. He played for Johnny Majors, so he really had the military pretty tough. He'd kind of get right in the linebackers' faces and raise his voice quite a bit. And I remember going, man, I'm glad I'm not a linebacker. So, looking back at it, they all worked together well. On Sundays, they did so much prep time. My brother, he ended up getting hurt, and so he got a scholarship, like a medical hardship scholarship. Basically would go in for 8 hours drawing up the scout team plays for the following week whenever we're playing K-State or Iowa State or whatever. He would basically write those scout team plays up, and he'd run that. So the amount of time that the coaches put in during the season, and Matt can attest to this, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
They're dialed in, and they're looking at depth charts. We're watching film. We watched so much film. It was unbelievable, But like I said, I learned a lot, perseverance and, just not to quit. And I think that's really helped me in life to handle, situations I've had, that are tougher with job transfers and stuff like that later on. And to say, don't ever give up. And that's one thing I can really pull from being a walk-on. And Matt can attest to that too, is just the fortitude of going, I can make this, I can do it.
Matt, there were times when people wanted to go home, and you were kind of the guy on the team that they pointed at that guy to rope him back in a little bit and talk some reality of what you had felt and maybe what got you to stay. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's fine. There was another kid from Nebraska, from Kearney, who walked on, and I was a junior. He was a freshman, and he was homesick, and he wanted to quit. He wanted to go home, and Coach Barnett came up and said, hey, can you just talk to him about staying and convince him? And walk on to walk on. You just have that connection. I'm sure, Darren, you felt the same way with other walk-ons. You just, and the younger walk-ons would look up to you, so you had a little bit of pull with them. And so just to be able to sit there and say, look, I know this sucks. I know you're not happy. I was there. I know you're sad. I know you're homesick, but you got to stick through it, man, because you've come out on the other side and you've seen the reward. At that time I was on scholarship. Now, we hadn't won the Big Ten, but I do think about my teammate, who we're still friends today. If he had quit, he wouldn't have been part of that Rose Bowl team. He wouldn't have been a part of that Citrus Bowl team, but he was a part of it because he didn't quit. And Darren, you're exactly right. The fortitude, there's so many times in life where you run up across an obstacle in your career, right? You're like, oh, you're not good enough. You know, people are trying to tear you down. But because you've played college football, because you walked on and you've seen and you've experienced with your own life how hard work and self-belief and determination can help you reach your goals no matter what people think of you, you just stop listening to people. And you're like, I don't care what you say. This is my goal. This is where I'm going. You're either on the train with me or you're not. I don't care. You know, and there's a lot of people that in life, they quit, things get hard, they stop believing in themselves, they settle. But I will tell you, I bet you the majority of walk-ons, no matter what sport they play in college, I bet you the majority of walk-ons are more successful than people ever imagined they would be when they were in high school because of that experience. It really led the way and taught them how to reach success.
There's a toughness. My daughter was a D2 track athlete for 3 years, and time management and toughness and working through failure and all that stuff, and just learning how to be valuable to the team or to the program or to the coach turned her into a pretty good young adult. And it just had a big... Awesome. Now, there's another story that I kind of liked because it was kind of simple. It wasn't as dramatic, but it was the scale, the pennies on the scale before you played Notre Dame. Tell us that way.
So Gary Barnett, the master motivator, and like Tom Osborne, Gary never cussed. He had his policy. I'm not going to swear at you. I'm not going to scream at you. Like, he didn't want to be that kind of coach, which we all respected. So going into my junior season, this is 1995. Our first game is Notre Dame in South Bend. We had played Notre Dame our first game the last 2 years, and Notre Dame had just pasted us. I mean, they were so much better than us. So he was thinking, how do I get these guys to believe in themselves that we can actually go into South Bend and win? So the very first day of training camp, we're up in Kenosha. And after practice that day, the 2-a-days, we had our team meeting, and Gary Barnett brings out this scale, and he's got 20 pennies on one side, 20 pennies on the other. He says, okay, gentlemen, here's the deal. We have 20 practices before we play Notre Dame. So he put the 20 pennies on the scale. He said, Notre Dame has 20 practices before they play us. So he put the other 20 pennies, and it was even. And he goes, gentlemen, if we make the most of every practice, we will have a chance to beat Notre Dame. See, visually, we're even with them. So every day after practice, if we earned the penny, we wanted to earn our penny, Gary would put another penny on the scale, you know? And so during training camp, one practice, we didn't play very well. So Gary didn't give us a penny. We didn't earn it. We were supposed to have Sunday off. The seniors went to Coach Barnett and said, Coach, we want to practice. We want to earn back that penny that we didn't earn the other day. So we actually practiced on our off day to earn the penny. I mean, these coaches, they're geniuses, right? Like, we're voluntarily practicing on our off day so we can earn a penny.
For a penny,
so
right.
We need the penny. So the day of the game, we're at the hotel. We're talking to the coaches up there. He's got the scale. He says, gentlemen, okay, so Notre Dame had 20 practices before they play us. So he put the 20 pennies on the scale. He said, we had our 20 practices. So he put the 20 pennies on the scale. It was even. Then he lifts up one more penny. He goes, however, we had an extra practice. And he puts the penny on our side, and all the pennies go flying. And he goes, when we beat Notre Dame, you do not carry me off the field. And we beat them. I mean, I'm telling you, we just believed. We were like, we had an extra practice. We're that much better than Notre Dame. And we went in and beat them.
The pennies prove it, see? It's right there.
The penny proved it.
That's obviously a pre-NIL story.
Yeah, or it would have been $100 bills.
Right. Yeah.
But I love it. They're so convicted. They're so into what they believe, and they know what they're trying to construct in a culture that everybody just falls in line, and it's motivating, and it sounds crazy when you hear it on the outside.
Right.
That was what it took to push you over the edge. And
so the theme I'm catching here is, even though the walk-ons go to two totally different programs. I mean, Darren steps into a program where it is national title or bust. You know, we've won countless games and are going to win countless games. And Matt walks into we may not win a game to we're going to go to the Rose Bowl, but both coaches are preaching belief. And it didn't matter what your program status was in. I've got to get my kids to believe that when we go out there, we are going to win the football game. And it sounds like both coaches, even though their methods were a little bit different, when you peel the layers away from the onion, it's the same thing. And it's, can you get your players to buy in, to believe what you're doing?
So true. That's exactly right.
So One of the things going into your Rose Bowl season, it wasn't really an arrow straight pointing up. You won 3 games the year before, and there was a death of a teammate. There was a gambling scandal. There were upperclassmen disgruntled, leaving the program. It wasn't just a clear-cut path, where you went straight to the top. And out of that team, you had the most successful team in history. How did that happen? And what changed in the construction or the belief in the team? Finally, you had weeded out the doubters, the people that weren't all in, and you were ready to get it done.
Yeah, when Gary Barnett took over and he started recruiting his first class or his first couple classes, he preached to them, we're going to the Rose Bowl. I only want guys who believe we're going to win and go to the Rose Bowl. And so he was preaching that from day one when he started in 1992. So, he was getting his guys in there. And by 1995, his first class, they were now seniors. His second class, juniors. Everyone, basically, except for some of the fifth years, they were guys that Gary had brought to the team. So all the guys before who were used to losing, who didn't know Gary Barnett, who weren't recruited by him, who didn't believe in him, they were gone. Plus, you're exactly right. Our star running back and 2 of our starting wide receivers, they were caught gambling against us to lose. They were fumbling intentionally. They were dropping passes to cover the spread so they could win money. We had only lost a couple of games. Even though we only won 3 games my sophomore year, we had lost like 5 games by a score. And so we knew we were closer than anyone thought we were. And if our own teammates hadn't been gambling against us, we might have won a lot more games. So those guys were gone. And then you're exactly right. Leading into training camp, our second string strong safety, a star, Marcel Price, he goes home to Nashville just for a weekend. His best friend shows him a gun that he just bought, and the gun accidentally goes off, shoots him in the chest and kills him. And so we're reeling from this death. We had patches for Big 6 for him. So we dedicated the season to him. We kind of came together around that death. I think his death helped kind of bring us together as a team. We were more of a family now because we were all grieving together. And knowing that all those guys who didn't believe in what Gary Barnett was teaching were gone. Gary had his guys now, and we were ready to go. We were ready to win. And it was just a matter of Gary pointing us in the right direction. The pump was primed. It was like, okay, go here. And sure enough, we won. We started winning, and we realized that that's what it took, was just belief. Like you said, it's so true. Belief was the main thing, just believing in ourselves and believing in our coaches.
What was the moment? What was a game moment where it just it happened? You came back with the monkey analogy and story.
Exactly.
You came back from that.
We did. And I mean, I wish I could say our next game was this huge epiphany, but I mean, we played Air Force at home. We beat Air Force. It wasn't a big deal. We were supposed to beat them. I think there were 2 big moments. One, we went to the Big House. And I don't know if you remember, but Michigan had a running back by the name of Tim Biakabatuka. Mm-hmm. That dude was a monster. And we go in the Big House, and everyone's like, oh, Michigan's going to show Northwestern. We're going to see Northwestern's not for real. And we beat Michigan, I think it was 19-15, and it was 1 touchdown, a bunch of field goals. But we outlasted them, and we were able to beat them. And that, to us, was like, okay, we're for real. But then it was either the next week or a couple weeks later, Penn State came to Evanston. Now, our stadium was so old, we don't have lights. So it was November, and we had I think it was a 2:30 kickoff. And so ABC brought in lights so that we could actually play, so we could see the ball, because it was getting dark early. And the clock, the play clock was so low in the stands that at one point the refs had to stop the game and tell people to sit down because the quarterback couldn't see the play clock, because we never had sold out crowds. It was the first year that we actually had sold out crowds. We always played at a half empty stadium my freshman and sophomore year, and now they were selling it out. And so when we won that game, our running back, Darnell Autry, was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And he ended up being a Heisman candidate. And that was, to us, was like, okay, this is for real. Our running back is on the cover of Sports Illustrated. That's pretty cool. And so that just propelled us through the rest of the season as far as winning the rest of our games and actually getting to the Rose Bowl.
Excellent. Darren, you got a game that really stands out?
There's a lot of different games. I'd say probably the one that stands out the most to me would be the Miami game. It was basically Tom Osborne's first national championship, where it was a battle between Warren Sapp and our offensive line. And, there was a time where they zoomed in on him. He was a defensive tackle, where he had his hands above his head, just catching his breath, because our line was 6'5", 300 pounds is what we averaged back then. So, and we ran the ball over and over and over. And I don't think he was used to that, the pounding. We won. It was 24-17. I'll never forget that night because it was so electric that it really happened. And then, like I said, it was a late night afterwards.
Two of us in this room were at that game. Not just one.
Okay.
Because I was a big Nebraska fan, of course, and I got so hyped that we were going to go play Miami that I just on a whim, back then it was call up Ticketmaster, right? You like 1-800, and I want four tickets to okay. And I got them and I was just like, I cannot believe this. We're going. And so I called my brother-in-law who got me into Nebraska football. And I said, we're going. I got 4 tickets to the Orange Bowl. And he goes, we're not guaranteed to go to that game yet. Like, we got to beat Oklahoma in a couple. I'm like, right. What? He goes, yeah. There's a scenario where we don't go if we don't beat Oklahoma. So then I sweat out that Oklahoma game, which is like a 13-3 slugfest or something. But we end up going. We went down. We got to see that game, and it was incredible. And just like you, just goosebumps the whole game. And the fans behind us were like, oh, it's happening to you again, Nebraska, because we kind of trailed most of that game. And then the fourth quarter came around, and the whole story about Nebraska was just in better shape and, just kind of took over in that fourth quarter and kind of beat Miami up at their own game. And, I'm glad you mentioned that game.
I remember that game because I was in Omaha at my grandparents' house. It was my sophomore year, so this is the year we won 3 games. So I remember watching that game, going to 72nd and Dodge afterwards with all the other Nebraska fans, and we're all cheering. But I remember watching that game, and I looked at all my relatives, and I said, I'm not going to be here for Christmas next year because Northwestern's going to be in a bowl game, and they all laughed at me.
That's great.
They're all like,
awesome.
yeah, it's not happening.
That is great.
But you're right, that game, because Tom Osborne could never win the big one, and then you beat Miami, and it was like, okay, Nebraska now has turned the corner. You're exactly right. That was a great win.
Yeah, one thing I'll tell you, Coach Charlie McBride, he was our defensive coordinator at the time. There's nothing better than beating, a team on their home turf in front of their home fans, where they've got their grandparents, their aunts and uncles in the stands watching them. And they would always say that, and that was such a motivation. You're beating them on their home turf. Is
somebody's aunt's crying in the stands, right? That's pretty good.
That's excellent. Okay, so here's something I've actually read in your book, Matt, and in an interview that Darren did once. Each of you had a different kind of experience, but there was a moment when Keith Jackson did each of your games, and you had a play that got.
Why do you got to bring that up?
Now, I want to point out that it reminds me a little bit of San Francisco Super Bowl with the Chiefs when the punt hit the back heel of somebody and, and all that kind of thing. Yeah. So there's a randomness to it. You guys on the special teams were kind of out there and exposed. Anything can happen.
So I'm on punt return, and we had a punt block where usually on the punt return, I was on the edge. And then on the punt block, I would jump out to the gunner position, meaning, the 2 wide receivers on the outside, I would cover one of them going down the field. My job was just to slow them down, because if we were going to try to block it, we were going to fair catch the ball. So this is the Penn State game I was telling you about when we had to bring in the lights. Joe Paterno, and this was the third quarter. Penn State's driving down, clock's going. We stop them. They have to punt, so we call it punt block. I go out there, and I'm blocking my guy. It's like the worst punt in the world. It hits the turf 10 yards away and bounces and barely touches the outside of my foot. I don't see it. Typically, the punt return is supposed to yell, poison, poison. So that way I know that the ball is coming toward me so I can get out of the way. He didn't yell that, so I had no clue. So it barely glanced on my foot, and Penn State recovered. And it's interesting. We beat Penn State, but they had the ball for like 14 minutes and 30 seconds of the third quarter because of that. And we ended up holding them to a field goal, which was great. But it was funny because my mom was taping the game, and it's like Keith Jackson, the great broadcaster. He's like, and the ball hits number 30. And then there's a long pause as he's looking on his roster.
To find your name.
Matt Stewart. I'm like, thanks, Keith. The one time he says my name, and that's what it's for.
Oh, man. What a great story.
There's going to be another story I'll throw in that'll make you happier. So that's fine. So, How about your Keith Jackson moment?
Yeah, it was most memorable. It was my junior year. We played in the Kickoff Classic in the Meadowlands where the Giants play, and we played West Virginia. Anyway, we started off pretty strong. Tommy Frazier had a really good game. I was able to get in and play kind of at the end. So I was left cornerback. They're driving. They're on like the 20-yard line. And I'm, covering a receiver. He runs a 10-yard out, and he's basically right on the goal line. Well, I come out of my back pedal, and then I hit him before the ball gets there. So otherwise, he probably would have caught it. So it was one of those deals where I tried to go through it. Well, they called pass interference, and Keith Jackson makes the call, and he says, yeah, reserve quarterback, cornerback Darren Schmadeke had him zipped up, put it in his back hip pocket. He had a funny little saying. I'll never forget that. And I'm like, Keith Jackson did say my name. So I'm like,
Hey,
there you go.
So anyway, but we ended up winning that game, but it was really neat. I remember as a junior, like, we're playing where the Giants play. This is so cool, at the Meadowlands.
That is cool.
And so great experience. A lot of fun.
So you go to the Rose Bowl and you guys come back off of that. Coach Barnett stays. Can you get this magic back together in the next season? And it's harder, but you accomplish almost all of your goals. Talk about what you did that senior season and maybe how satisfying that was. By that point, your career is coming to an end, but you're seeing it to the very end as a senior.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all in, right? I've got one more year. I'd start taking creatine, legal supplement. So, I was lifting hard. I stayed in Evanston over the summer, so I was working out with the team. Our fullback, Matt Hartle, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, so that was a huge blow. It just seemed like before these great seasons, we would lose a great player. So he ended up not playing, but we rallied around him. And we still had the core, the nucleus of the guys that got us to the Rose Bowl. So including Pat Fitzgerald, if you remember him. Oh, yeah. He's coaching Michigan State now, but he was a Butkus, two-time Butkus All-American linebacker. And he was our leader on defense. And we had the best defense, one of the top 5 defenses in the nation those 2 years. So we come back in our first game, we play Wake Forest and we lose. And everyone's like, okay, what is going on? But then we end up winning 8 of our next 9 games. So we ended up being 9-3 on the season and won our Big Ten again. I'll go ahead and just tell the story. So it's one of those things where as a walk-on, again, you always feel like you have to work harder, that you're being disrespected. And so the coaches were always trying to find someone to replace me, always. They were moving offensive guys to defense. Hey, we're going to move them to strong safety because I had moved to strong safety by then. I was second string strong safety. And Matt, can you teach this running back how to play strong safety? Okay. I mean, I'm a team guy. It's fine, but I didn't like it. And the experiments always failed. The offensive guys, no offense, Darren, but the offensive guys just couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure it out. And so, it was one of those things where I would always end up back at second string strong safety. I was dependable. And even though I wasn't the fastest guy on the team, I knew the coverages. And again, it's inches and angles. I could make plays when I needed to. We go through the season and, I'm not playing a whole lot, not nearly as much as I want to. And I know I'm done. I'm not going to the NFL. This is it for me. I'm not coming back for a 5th year. Our second to last game, we're playing Iowa in Iowa City. We're up 35-7. It's the 4th quarter, 12 minutes left. Game's over. It's like a Nebraska pasting. Like, okay, it's time for me to play. So the defensive coordinator says, hey, second string defense, everyone in. Everyone but you, Matt. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? He's like, no, you stay here on the sideline. We're going to keep the starter in, but you stay here. So the entire second string, and I'm like, this is it, coach. Like, I'm done. Let me play. Give me a reward for all the hard work and sacrifices over the last 4 years. It's not like they're going to win the game on me. Like, I'm a good safety. Let me show you. The clock runs down. They drive the field. They score on the starting strong safety, ironically. I don't get in the game. So I am just heartbroken. I go in the locker room. I put a towel over my head. I'm crying. Like, it's a team game, so I don't want people to see it. But even my teammates were coming up. They're like, Matt, you were screwed. You should have been out there playing. I'm so sorry. My defensive back coach came up. He said, Matt, I made a mistake. You should have played. I'm sorry. He goes, we got one more game against Purdue. I will try to get you in that game at safety if I can. Well, sure enough, Purdue, it's 24-24, 7 seconds left. We kick a field goal. So there's 3 seconds left. Purdue has the ball at the 20-yard line. It's a Hail Mary, so we put in our prevent defense, which I'm in. And so on the snap, I backpedal middle of the field. This quarterback throws it as far as he can. The ball's coming right at me. I jump higher than I've ever jumped in my life, and I snatch that ball out of the air. And I get my one and only interception on the last play of the regular season to secure a second Big Ten title. And so it's one of those things where, I wish I had played at Iowa, but what a happy ending, to have my lowest moment the week before, my highest moment the next week to help our team win. I mean, it ended up being a great, great memory for me.
You had a experience at the tail end when Coach Barnett kind of allowed that you were more valuable than you thought he perceived, and talked about that. And I'd like you to do that. And maybe Darren has an example of that where that respect was stated finally.
Yeah. So this is the week before Purdue. So, Iowa game's over. I'm at my lowest point. I'm like, the coaches don't like me. They don't respect me. Why am I here? I'm just taking up space. Like, I'm really down on myself. And the week before Purdue, Coach Barnett gets up on stage in front of the whole team. And he says, I've never done this, but I want to call each of my seniors up one at a time because you guys have turned this program around, right? We went to the Rose Bowl. We're about to win another Big Ten championship. So we started calling up the seniors one at a time. And yeah, I'm a senior, but I'm like, he's not calling me up. I'm a walk-on. He didn't even recruit me, he's in and whatever. So I'm just sitting there, just kind of down in my seat. And all of a sudden he calls my name and I'm like, okay. So I walk up on stage and he looks out at the crowd and he goes, Matt Stewart has won us games. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm a walk. What? He's like, Matt has come to practice every single day. He goes 100%. He makes everyone better. He's made some plays on the field that's helped us win. He goes, you cannot win championships without guys like Matt, the walk-ons who will come in, who don't play because, they want accolades, but they play for the love of the game, and it was a great moment because one, I felt appreciated finally. And two, I love the fact that he recognized that, you need the walk-ons. The walk-ons are the heartbeat of a team. The walk-ons are the ones that are there making everyone better. And they might not play, they might not start. Walk-ons, you can't win championships.
That was a good perception on his part, kind of like Tom Osborne knowing the difference between you and your twin brother.
That's true.
But did you have a moment like that?
Yeah, I would say I kind of had two. One was my junior year. We played Pacific, and I ended up playing quite a bit, probably 3 quarters. And granted, we were beating them pretty good, so they had. Once we had 20, 30-point cushion, they could put me in and going, okay, I don't think we can lose with Darren in there.
We're good.
Anyway, so I ended up having a lot of tackles, which I don't know if that's bad for the linebackers, but being a cornerback, I led the entire team in tackles that game. So I ended up getting, a kind of a reward for defensive back of the game, got a plaque, and it really got recognized. I felt real special about that. It was really kind of a highlight for me.
That's awesome. Say.
And then my senior year, my highlight was actually against Mizzou. It was Brad Smith's backup quarterback. Actually, it was backpedaling, caught a interception, my only interception in the end zone. The crowd went crazy. I had all the guys dogpiling on me. I'm like, man, this hasn't happened since high school. So anyway, it was really kind of an awesome experience of, having everybody pat me on the head and, great job with the interception. And then, I don't know, maybe 6 months or a couple months after that, I ran into there was probably a 9 or 10-year-old girl from our hometown had made me a little figurine made out of metal and bolts, glued together and made a plaque. And it says Darren Schmadeke preserving the shutout, Missouri in the score. And she handed that to me, and I still have that to this day.
Oh yeah.
And it's really pretty cool. And I'm like, man, I got a 10-year-old girl looking up to me, and I'm, but she was from my hometown, so she kind of knew of us. So it was kind of neat.
Yeah.
So
okay, I've got a question too about the bona fide stars like Pat Fitzgerald, and I'm assuming Tommy Frazier, and I know there's some others. What was it like for each of you playing with someone like that on your team? Does it change the dynamic when you're traveling? Do you go out with them? Do they get treated different by people? What was it like to play with? Start with you, Darren, with a bona fide NFL star.
One thing with Tommy is his leadership was off the charts. He was very confident. He was actually quite cocky with some of the players and some of the fans, but he got inundated all the time. We didn't have much, with regards to training and coaching of how to handle the crowd, how to handle that sort of thing. But his locker was 3 or 4 down from mine. I respected him. He respected me, and I didn't talk to him. I didn't hang out with him, I would say. But he always was very nice to me. Everybody believed in him, his confidence, his aura about him I ran into him at our 30th reunion for our 94 national championship and introduced him to my son. He's like, so he got a picture with my son. So that was really cool. It's like we go back to these reunions and it's like just starting back up again, so that's one thing that's really special. We've developed long-term, lifelong friendships still to this day. And one other quick story back about a walk-on is Mike Roberts. He was a walk-on with me from Omaha. So he was a year behind me. So we were kind of in, the scout team together, and he was a safety. I was a cornerback. But most recently found out that I got a call from Coach Croy saying that Mike Roberts, his daughter, is going to camp with Jenny Croy down at Jewel.
Oh,
Jewel.
Wow. Yeah.
So anyway, I called him. I texted him, and I said, hey, I hear your daughter's going to basketball camp. He's like, how do you know that? I said, I got my ways. So anyway, I kind of told him that story, and he's like, can you put a good word in for her?
Yeah, right.
So anyway, small world.
How about you, Matt? Who's the star aura that changed the way you look at how they played, how you played with them?
Yeah, it was exactly the same. I mean, the Stars had this confidence bordering on cockiness, but they were also approachable and friendly. And basically, they demanded excellence from everyone around them. And so Pat Fitzgerald on the defense, he was very vocal, but he was one of those guys where it didn't matter if you were a walk-on and you made a good tackle in practice. He was the first one there, patting you on the back. Good job, you know what I mean? Just kind of getting the whole team to gel and to play for each other. On the offense, it was guys like Darnell Autry, and Steve Schnurr was our quarterback who, was really just an average quarterback, but he just had this confidence. He just knew that when he was in the game, he was going to make the play. That was really the difference between the starters and the backup. It all came down to that confidence of, I'm going to make the play, and if I make a mistake, it's fine. I'm still going to make the next play. I'm going to be just as good the next play as I was this. So you need a lot of those in order to build a championship team. And luckily, Nebraska and Northwestern, we both had plenty of those for sure.
That's outstanding. Matt, I want you to take this a little bit further with what you did. You got into journalism. You went to a great journalism school, obviously, and parlayed that into your career. You're well known around the Kansas City area and respected. And more recently, don't know how much you want to talk about this, but I know that you are really convicted with teaching people about living life and facing up to some challenges that you and your family have had, health challenges. I'm just impressed by that. And I know that's really a big thing right now for you to get across to people. And some of this enthusiasm and some of this belief that you're talking about.
I'm an open book. So, if you follow me on social media, I'm pretty open about all this stuff. So I don't mind talking to you about it. I will say that all the lessons learned as a walk-on and just learning that, when you set high goals, because we learned one of the first things that the motivational speaker, Steve Musso, told us was you rarely, if ever, exceed your own expectations. So if your goals are really low, you're not going to be great, right? Set your goals really, really high. And so that's what I've done my whole life. So when it came to journalism, I graduated from Northwestern. I'm ready to get a TV job. I send out 50 resumes to 50 stations and I get 0 calls. So I settle for this morning show editor, photographer position, not even in front of the camera. Work my way up to traffic reporter. A year and a half later, after working in Omaha, my boss is like, yeah, you need to go to a smaller station and get some experience before we'll hire you as a reporter. So I send out 50 more resume tapes and I get 0 calls. I'm facing adversity. None of these stations want to hire me and I don't know why. Well, luckily, I had a friend in Sioux City, Iowa, who had just left as a reporter. So there was an opening, and she put in a good word. I got a job there. From there, I worked my way up to weekend anchor. Then I fall in love. My wife's in central Nebraska, Kearney, Nebraska. So I moved to Kearney, Nebraska, where there's a TV station, but the only job they have is a photographer. But I have so much confidence in myself, and I know that even though I'm going from weekend anchor to photographer, that I can work my way back up. I did it in football. Like I'm leaning on these lessons from the football field, and I do. I worked my way up to weekend anchor. Then we get married, and she's like, I have an internship in Ohio. Well, the only position there was one station had a photographer position. So I, once again, weekend anchor to photographer and worked my way back up. 2 years later, I'm in Kansas City. Been in Kansas City for almost 25 years, I think. Started at Channel 5, and I've been at Channel 4. We're the #1 morning station, and it's been so rewarding to be able to do that and do what I love. And I'm glad I didn't give up, right? Anyone else would have said, wow, no one's hiring me. I'm going to go do something else. But I kept my goal high. I said, no, I want to be a reporter and an anchor, and I'm not stopping until I get there. And I've been able to get there because I just keep going back to football. No one thought we could win the Big Ten, and we did. I mean, if Northwestern can go from the worst team to the best team, surely I can go from a graduate without a job to finding a job in front of the camera. And I did, which was great. But yeah, you're talking about the personal adversity that I faced lately. So I was diagnosed with cancer. They found a brain tumor and tumors in my lungs and a tumor on my lymph node. And so I ended up having brain surgery. Doctor drilled into my head and pulled out a walnut-sized tumor. I've had radiation to kill the tumor bed. I've had chemo. I've been doing chemo every 2 weeks, try to keep the cancer at bay. I'm currently on immunotherapy. We're hoping that might do the trick because the chemo is not as effective anymore. The tumors are starting to grow. It's colorectal cancer. And I'm the rare patient that has it everywhere but my colon or my rectum. Don't have it in my GI system, but it's just everywhere else. I once had a polyp with cancer cells on it in my rectum, and they cut it out. And we did a surgery and found that the cancer hadn't spread. They believe that there was a cancer cell in there that escaped and latched onto the lymph node and then started, pumping cancer cells over my body. So we're fighting it. And when I was first diagnosed, I posted on Facebook that, I had cancer. And Coach Gary Barnett, he wrote me and he said, Matt, he goes, I am just heartbroken. I can't believe you have cancer. I'm so sorry. And I said, Coach, I am leaning on everything you taught me those 4 years. My entire experience being a walk-on, earning a full ride, going from the worst team to the best team. I have learned so many lessons that I'm not just going to turn around and die. Like, I'm going to fight this thing to the bitter end. I'm willing to put in the work. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to keep this cancer from growing. And I don't know if I would be like that if I hadn't played college football. So I'm so grateful that I took a chance on myself. I took a risk and ended up paying in spades.
It's an inspiring story, and I really like the balance that you bring to this, because part of the story is you're fighting something, but part of the story is you're living, you're loving, your family is engaged in this with you. It's just very appealing, and I can understand why so many folks are very loyal and follow that part of your story and appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing you learn when you have cancer is that, you take for granted, you think you're going to live to be 80, 90 years old. And when all of a sudden, I'm 51. And when all of a sudden you're like, I could be dead in 5 years. You're like, okay, I don't have time to waste. I got to start living my life the way I want to live, traveling, spending time with family, making great memories. And so I do appreciate each day more than I ever have before. And it's really a lesson everyone. I mean, because we're all going to die, right? You don't know when. Yeah. So all of us should really be soaking up life every single day and trying to find joy in every single moment that we can.
Now, before we get into the very end point here, would you talk to us about ways that people can engage with you, where you are on social media, where you appear with your book signings and things like that, and then maybe how people can find out about your books? Because you did a book about the Royals, and of course,
I did, sure. So yeah, I have 6 books out there. I have a website. It's mattstewartbooks.com. So you can always search my books there, free shipping. If you want to engage with me on social media, I'm on Facebook. It's matt.stewart.4. Think about, I work at Fox 4, matt.stewart.4, and you can engage me there. You can even engage with me on Instagram if you'd like. My wife and I have written a memoir that we hope to publish soon. It's called All the Things Memoir. That's our handle. So you can kind of follow our story on social media. And we try to post and we try to be transparent about what we're going through, the tests, the chemo, how I feel, all those things, because it's just important, I think, to have a community behind you when you're going through adversity, when you're going through tough times. No one should do it alone. It's hard to go through these things alone. So to know that the Kansas City community is behind us it's really uplifting.
That's great. And I appreciate that. We started a podcast and did it 2 years ago, and this is our 47th episode. And the first time I did it, I thought, what a fraud. I have no idea what I'm going to say next. And how are we going to accomplish this? And we just kept building some competencies and stuck with it. And
I love it.
Luckily, we didn't have a lot of feedback because the feedback might have been entirely negative. at the very beginning.
We didn't have a Gary Barnett with a scale. We just just kept going.
The other guy has 20 podcasts. You have 20 podcasts. But you had an extra one.
That is absolutely right. So anyway, we kept going, and we love bringing these kind of stories because the word legacies is in our podcast name. And it's really our legacy as parents, our legacy as players, the 9-year-old that made this item for you. The last thing I'm going to queue up is, what would you tell a kid from a small high school or a medium-sized high school who's had success but maybe not been splashed across the front page of the paper about what they might expect or what they should think about if they think about continuing their sports careers? And I'm going to let Darren start. So,
yeah. That's a great question. One thing that comes to mind is setting your goals high. One thing I remember about my grandmother, she used to cut articles out of the newspaper and tape them up onto her kitchen cabinets. And I remember one that said, think big, think really big. So there's things like that were introduced to me from my parents and grandparents of believing in myself. And then, of course, I had a twin brother that challenged me. So we were competitive, ran track since we were 10. So he really built me up. I built him up too. But overall, it was really telling the kids that they need to believe in themselves, be confident in themselves, and set their goals higher than what they think they can achieve. Because, once you do that, you can accomplish great things. And one thing that I've always been a believer in is if you believe, you can achieve. So you have to really, take a look at all the different opportunities that are out there that the world has to offer. And there's a lot of them. And you come from a small town of 2,000 people in north central Nebraska like me, and it wasn't very big, but I was pretty fast. Who would have guessed that I would have played on Nebraska and been on part of 2 national championships, and we were 36-1 my sophomore, junior, senior year. I still look back at that in awe. I had opportunities to go to smaller schools, but I said, I'm okay being in a reserve role, being a part of something bigger. A bigger program that has more to offer and more exposure, and then just networking with the coaches, the players, which the friends and networks, which Matt, I'm sure, can attest to. I still have to this day that I go back to football games and I see these folks and we pick up just like we did back in the day, even though it's been 30 years. That right there is just very memorable, I would say.
Matt, what would you tell that young person that maybe is at that crossroads like you were?
Yeah, I always have 2 things that I try to get across to young folk. One, don't settle. I think if you've got a big dream and you have a dream of playing Division I, don't settle and go play Division III. Take a chance on yourself, bet on yourself, and go do it and see what you can do. I think people are afraid to walk on because they think, oh, well, I'll never get a full ride scholarship. Well, I'm proof that you can. If you work hard enough and are determined and impress the coaches, they will give you that full ride scholarship. They will play you. There are a lot of walk-ons that end up playing in the NFL. And so it's one of those things where I think too many kids that, if they don't get recruited by the Division I's, they go, well, I'll just go play Division II. I'll play Division III. And nothing wrong with those programs. Don't get me wrong. But I'm sorry, if you grew up, say, a KU fan, a K-State fan, a Mizzou fan, and you've had dreams of playing college for these teams, walk on. Give it a shot. If it doesn't work, you can always quit. But, too many people have regrets. I've talked to so many people who are like, man, I was good in high school and I could have played in college. Well, why didn't you? Go do it. Find out. Can you play in college or not? So I think too many people settle. So yeah, I'm always like, bet on yourself and don't settle. Those are my 2 words of advice for kids.
That's great advice.
Great.
So I'm going to just wind this up, and I want to thank Darren for coming into the studio, and I hope we'll have to have him on as a guest when we talk a little college football this fall. And Matt, we greatly appreciate what you're doing in a lot of arenas in life and how you've taken that experience and shared it with people so we can feel what you felt through your books and through your reporting. And I just want to wish you the greatest success in your journey in football, now as a spouse, father, showing the way for your family and living fully. And I just want to thank you for your time tonight.
And
Thanks for having me.
And don't forget, mail those rings to Jeff Crowley, P.O. Box 402.
We're a bad connection. Sometimes I don't know what's going on. Sorry.
Connection.
Really enjoyed talking with both of you on the podcast, guys. Thank you.
I just want to thank everybody for coming in the studio tonight, and Matt for you sharing, Darren for you sharing. This was a lot of fun. And I want to thank our listeners at Show Me Sports Legacies.